If you're thinking about hosting some EV chargers, I like where your head's at. But there are a few things to avoid to make sure it's a success so you can start making money as soon as possible. In this video, I'll teach you what to look out for so you can avoid any problems and get straight to the profits. Hosting EV chargers. This is where it gets fun. Today, in this video, we're going to dive deeper into when hosting makes the most sense, what to avoid, and the ideal setup. All right, some essentials of hosting EV chargers. If you own any establishment with a physical location that people can visit, I'd highly recommend considering hosting EV chargers. Now, you don't need to own the property, but the point of this is that the center of EV charging is the electricity bill. Remember, the true commodity that EV chargers are selling is electricity. And if your name isn't on the electricity account, it's pretty tough to sell something that you don't possess, if you will. But if your name or business or address is on the electrical account, then you're in a great place to start. At the very least, maybe you're close with the person or entity that is on the account, and possibly you can come to some sort of agreement or partnership. The reason I say this is because the party that pays for the electricity bill is at the center where all the money is flowing. They hold a lot of power in this arrangement. No pun intended. Okay, after knowing those essentials, let's talk about the ideal location for EV chargers. Not every location is an ideal spot to host EV chargers. There are a few things to look out for. In a perfect world, it'll be a high traffic location with lots of people driving by or visiting. Ideally, they'll be staying for a decent amount of time, maybe even up to a few hours. If the location is near a lot of amenities like coffee shops or malls or movie theaters, then this might be a perfect spot. The longer people stay, the more money you make. Keep in mind, we're still talking about level 2 chargers here, and most people just use these chargers to top up their car. So I'd say high traffic is more important than longer stays. Alternatively, if you're in a location with no other chargers in sight, and the nearest charger other than yours is pretty far away, then this may still work. Simple supply and demand. If there are no other options, then drivers may just come to your location by default. But keep in mind that this industry is growing and chargers are popping up everywhere. The next biggest factor to determine if hosting EV chargers at your location makes sense, this is a pretty big one, and it's the cost of the project. The cost to install EV chargers at some locations are much more expensive than at others. The install costs are so important because the more the project costs, the longer it will take to reach that break-even point so you can start making a profit. The lower the cost to the project, the more attractive the investment will be. Certain factors are going to drastically increase the cost for the install, such as having an older building may require an electrical upgrade. If the electrical room is super far away from where the chargers are being placed, you'll have to pay more to run really long conduit wires. And another big one is how the chargers are mounted. So if they're mounted to the wall, it'll be less expensive than if they were mounted on a pedestal. Sometimes I'm surprised at the drastic difference in the cost of install between buildings, especially when they seem so similar in their appearance from the outside. For example, I have a friend who owns a business not too far from here, and the cost to install 2 EV chargers at his location was 12 grand. Then I was speaking with another gentleman really just down the street from my friend's spot, and the building seemed pretty similar, but the cost to install 2 EV chargers was closer to 30 grand. This is going to double the amount of time it'll take to reach that break-even point and start making a profit. If my friend's location charges 2 Teslas a day to full capacity, he could potentially break even in roughly 2 years. Okay, so how do we figure this out? Well, this is where the electrician comes in. The only true way to determine the cost of install at your location is to have an electrician stop by and provide a quote. Usually the electrician will do the quote for free because they want the business. I'd also recommend getting a quote from 2 different electricians for your project. The industry is still fairly new and a lot of trades are still trying to figure out their pricing structure. So it's not super uncommon for two quotes for the same spot to come in drastically different. Make sure you tell your electrician that you're looking for the least expensive way to install these chargers because there's a few ways to do it. And if you're lucky and your stars align, then the numbers may work out in your favor. I'd also not recommend going overkill on the number of chargers you install. Unless you have a really big establishment with hundreds of parking spots, I'd say 2 EV chargers is a pretty good place to start. Of course, the number of EVs that are hitting the streets is just continuing to rise, so it's your call. But you definitely don't want to have a bunch of EV chargers sitting there that are never being used. It's best to have a primary business generating revenue and adding EV chargers on as an additional stream of revenue, almost like icing on top of the cake. I'm planning my next video to be more specifically focused on the money and how to calculate return on investment. So keep an eye out for that one. I'm curious to hear if you'd ever consider hosting EV chargers at your location or if you think it's a good idea. Feel free to leave some thoughts in the comments below. If you have any questions, I'm happy to help. And if you want to keep following the journey, please subscribe to the channel for more. Thanks so much for checking in, and I'll catch you on the next one. Cheers.